Good afternoon. I am so thrilled and delighted and excited and surprised to be here. I had plans to come to Namibia, which is my 28th African country I'm visiting, mostly to see Frederico, who's already told you about our connection in the United States at the University of Rochester, and meet his family. But I missed that opportunity. He was supposed to graduate during COVID pandemic, and the graduation was shut down. His parents weren't able to come, so felt like a lost opportunity that I've now made up. But this past week I've been in Zambia, in Lusaka. I've been there as a guest and a speaker and a connection for the High Achieving Low Income Access Network, or HALI. HALI, by the way, is composed of organizations, schools, and foundations that are very excited that I'm coming to Namibia because we do not have a representative from Namibia in the HALI Access Network. There are 46 networked associations all across the African continent. And I'm supposed to help bridge the gap a little bit with my colleague here to try and help that be true for Namibia as well. But I was coming to Namibia to see the desert and maybe the beach and some really cool stuff. And then Frederico had the wonderful and tremendous idea that it would be great to have a chance to speak. And I am beyond inspired by the story of all of you being here. I'm not aware I'm older than Namibia. I remember when Namibia became an independent nation. And I'm not aware of any other nation on earth that is doing this kind of great work to build a network of its youth specifically dedicated to that. So I hope as Namibians you can be proud of this work that you are also intimately involved in and that the nation has committed itself to. It is inspiring to somebody like me. Bit of my background, I've spent most of the last 40 years working in higher education in the United States at universities. 3 research universities, most recently Cornell University in New York, but for a long time University of Rochester, where the 2 Namibians I know that went to Frederico and Olavi, who's somewhere here in the building, and that was my pride and joy. I love the opportunity to take people roughly your age, some younger, some older, and give them opportunities to extend their horizons, to reach out and beyond their comfort zone, and especially those coming from abroad to the United States. The United States is not an easy country to get to know or to be part of. It's an enormous challenge for anybody coming from anywhere, even from Canada, and coming from halfway across the world, as both of these 2 young men and many hundreds of others that I've known are like them, is something that inspires me and then leads to these great outcomes. They become mechanical engineers circling around the Angolan oil industry with the opportunity to have that also expand to Namibia and bring wealth and prosperity in a whole new dimension across the globe, and Olavi is involved in a whole bunch of business stuff. I think he's on an important call even right now. So it's tremendous, and it was described to you that you have to take that risk and take that challenge and go beyond. So the work that I do with HALI and the work that I also do in my private life is now shifting to focus on that. I have left my last job as an admissions intake person at Cornell University in the United States, and I have decided to devote all of my time I have left on this earth to increasing and broadening access, particularly for students from Africa. This is something I've been doing for 20 years. I've had the chance to expand and grow it tremendously recently with both a private company that is opening schools all across Africa. We are starting in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I would love to find a way to make that true also in Namibia. International schools that challenge students on multiple levels while they're still in high school as youth and to their opportunities beyond, and also to work very, very closely and intimately with the HALI Access Network, specifically focusing on those students from low-income backgrounds who have the least opportunities. Even within this room, there are people who know the people who have the least access to education. As we heard, they might drop out, they might not feel engaged. And we all know in this room that there are just as many smart, capable people who find themselves in those circumstances as there are at the highest end of income or in any other nation. I'm going to give you a couple of good and bad news questions around my topic, which is accessing scholarships and accessing international education, which can be very expensive in particular. Here's the bad news, the sobering news, the statistics, and some of you may know this. Africa is rapidly becoming 40% of the nation's youth. The median age in the continent of Africa is 18. The median age in 4 other continents is in the range of 35 to 37, and in Europe it is 41. So Africa is the world's future. in every possible way. This is where the work must happen. This is where we will understand what it means to be a human being in the 21st century, how we intersect with the new technologies that come our way that are overwhelming, how we prosper and thrive as a species, much less as a planet, is all going to be solved and resolved and happen here. Meanwhile, at this very moment, while 40% of youth are arising in Africa, Africa only holds 4% of the world's university positions. There are 9 million university spaces across the entire continent of Africa, and it's 1.5 billion people. But that is less than 1 in 10 of the average opportunity worldwide that we need to build. So we will build capacity. We will build universities and more high schools in Africa. We will build them rapidly. We will build them well. We will expand and accelerate in the way that China started 30 years ago and India started 20 years ago. This is what is going to happen in Africa. But it's not going to be enough. We're going to have to create opportunities and build capacities for African students, Namibian students, to study elsewhere and to bring that knowledge back and to pour it back into the environments and the communities and the people for whom they come. And so in building that capacity, we have to be very attentive and very deliberate about all the things that you're already doing in supporting youth movements and activities, and also bringing information to students about what they need to do to be ready to compete at that international and that global standard, whether it's all the way to the United States or to Europe or elsewhere in the continent where universities are growing and improving every day. Just to give you one more statistic about why that is so challenging, in Namibia, about 40,000 people are arriving at the point where they might be university bound each year, new students coming through in the ages of 17, 18, where they might be making these important transitions. There are only 40,000 African students total in the entire United States, a country that has about 14 million people. In other words, 50% more people than all of Africa. The United States is only about 1/5 the size of Africa, are studying in higher education in the United States, and only 40,000 are from Africa. We need to change that. We should be deliberate, and we should be presenting African students with more sense of the opportunity and the value and the promise that they get out of an education abroad, whether it's anywhere outside of Namibia or in Namibia, and more students taking advantage of that to bring that back to their communities. So that's the bad and sobering news. We have a big wall to climb. We have a lot of capacity to build. The work you're doing is important in that, and we have a lot that we can gain from doing that. Here's the good news. The world knows this. The smart money on this planet, whether it's in sectors of industry or finance or government, you've heard from the UN, is aware of the changes and the importance and the centrality of Africa in the world's mission. Africa's always been at the center, let's get real. It got pushed off to the side unfairly by all kinds of history, and we know that history. But meanwhile, Africa is back, and it's time, and the smart, intelligent money with the billions and even trillions of dollars, which is what Africa has lacked most, is that capital and that investment and that commitment, is coming this way. And all we have to do is make sure that they understand that there are students and young people that are here and ready to receive it. There are a number of organizations that do this. If you are interested in pursuing this yourself, some of you may be looking at graduate education. I am closely colleagues with a woman who has designed a program that is so perfect, I have to describe it to you. It's called 8B, and she is a Kenyan herself by origin, but she went to study abroad in England, and then she went to the United States and studied for both a bachelor's and master's degrees. Her idea is that if you get into a graduate program in the United States, she will partner with that program, that 8B will pay the fees and the costs, which could easily be $55,000 or $60,000 US in a single year. And if you decide to stay in the United States or to stay in Canada or Europe or someplace with a high income and the opportunities that await you beyond that, that will be a loan. You will pay that money back as you earn that high income. If you take that education you received with that investment and bring it back to the continent of Africa, that will be a grant. You will not have to pay that money back. You'll be able to turn with your full attention and no debt back to creating capacities and opportunities for the people that have come along behind you for these same kinds of law school, medical school, engineering programs at graduate standing, business school MBAs, public health, all the things that Africa can benefit from by what gets stuffed into your brain. That's just one opportunity. There is a technology opportunity that is particularly keen in Namibia and particularly across Africa, of creating profiles for every student about who they are for themselves, not who they are in terms of what exams they engaged in and what they passed, which is sort of drawing a line and saying everybody who needs to get where they need to go has to get above this line, but to look at the things you're actually doing that matter, that are important to you with your groups, with your collaborations, with your creativity, and see where that benefit and advantage will take you in higher education to get a degree to go beyond. The organization is called MITO. They have authorized me to say that they're particularly excited about moving into Namibia. And then the organizations that I'm part of, the school building, the Holly Access organizations, they are searching high and low and creating tremendous knowledge banks of how to access particular scholarships to the point where in the Holly organizations this past year, I've seen these numbers. We're talking about the lowest 20% of income in all the 30 countries in which they operate in Africa. They were able to fund fully 2,000 students coming from Africa. Fully 5% of all the African students in the United States are coming from this lowest income circumstances, and we know what that means. And collectively, those 2,000 students have collected $150 million worth of scholarships to pursue their education abroad. So there is great work going on, and that is the good news. And I will be sure, since I just got here and I'm just sort of putting it together and getting to meet all of you, you are my 3rd through 60th Namibians I've ever met in my life. I'm going to be putting a list together to make sure that we have a good resource that we can put here at NYC that can be available to you and to the students and the youth that you serve to inspire them, to make sure they understand that there is a world out there that wants to see them, that wants to see the challenges that they are willing to engage themselves in to prosper and thrive, and then to bring that intentionality and all that success back with them to Namibia and beyond in Africa. So thank you very much for that.